Hello, fellow fantasy sports fans. It is Dr. Dan Ratner here on MFSN, the hub. It is time for our Q&A on Tuesdays. I would say that we're always at the same time, but clearly we're not because we were late today, which is at least partially my fault. But there's a story behind that. If you want to ask me about it, that's fine. I'd be happy to talk about it. This is my first time on the Q&A where we get to bring baseball into it. And baseball is my very favorite fantasy sport. It's not even close. We can talk fantasy basketball if you want. I will bring all the enthusiasm for that as well. But baseball, I am fully ready for. If you're new to the show, I just wanted to encourage you, click subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, hit like if you like what you're hearing, and put your comments below, and I will get back to you personally. Now, it has been 2 weeks, actually 3 weeks total in time, since I have been on the Q&A. Ross the Boss has had the bully pulpit. He's come on here and he's talked about things, including me, of course, because that's what Ross does. He complains about things like, the rules that I set in my leagues, and I'm going to get back at him now because I'm going to look at his league and talk about what rules he has set. He and I like this sort of thing. It's like all very good-natured. But, there's a little bit of jock in him and maybe a little bit of nerd in me. And I just wanted to remind him of the movie Revenge of the Nerds, which has its problems in modern day culture. But the nerds winning is not one of them. And I'm not really a nerd anyway, but more than Ross was. So let's get to baseball. I am going to bring on screen what I'm looking at. Now, I have 2 baseball leagues going right now. I have a keeper league, which is my main league that's been going since 2007. I've been playing fantasy baseball since 2006. And in case you're worried that I'm going to give you bad advice, I will let you know that I have won 6 championships. 6. No, actually 7. There was a third league, and I won that league once. So baseball is my jam. This is the one where I can tell you anything you want to know, and I'm going to basically almost always get it right. I don't usually like to brag, but in this case, I do like to brag. Okay, so let's take a look and see what's happening in this league. First of all, this shows you how early we are in the year. Nick Castellanos is ranked number 1 in the league. That is because we have been playing for so short a time that he has 15 at-bats, but he has 8 hits. Now, could I have seen this coming? Yes, I could have, because this is the kind of thing, Mazzoni's Rockers, that is Lauren. You may remember her. She was on earlier episodes of MFSN. She has a knack for drafting these players that make me just think like, what? Why did you draft Nick Castellanos? And then, of course, he has some kind of breakout season. You're always going to find players that are able to find pieces of the game that you didn't know. I'm very good at what I do in the game, but there's certain players that always do really well. And she won the league last year. Now, it was the only year she's ever won the league. It was a shortened year, so we're going to see. Can she do it throughout a whole year? We will see. We've got some other teams in the league, and I'm going to show you. My team is named Jobu's Rum. You will notice that I spelled it wrong back in 2007, and I didn't know it was spelled with a U. I think it should be spelled this way, so it's not my fault. It's the Major League's movie fault. So the best player I have going right now is somebody I'm very excited about, Jared Walsh. Now, I'm excited about him for multiple reasons. One of them is there are a lot of fantasy experts who were like, "Oh, I don't think he can do it. He hasn't had the track record." Well, guess what? He did have a top prospect ranking in the past, and he was awesome last year. So let's take a look under the hood. This is the thing I love about baseball. You get to go under the hood and check what's happening with these players. That is, if your internet cooperates. If it doesn't, you're not going to see that much. Here it is. So Jared Walsh, we're looking at him. Here's his season last year. Now, in 32 games, he batted .293. Excellent. Here's what I'm looking at. Look, no, Yahoo. I do not want to try 7 days free. I don't want anything from you. Leave me alone. Okay, this 971 OPS, that is a big thing. It's going to tell you the OPS is the combination between on base percentage and slugging percentage. Oh, we've got a comment here from 810 Pro Wrestling. It's Marty's co-host on his wrestling show. Hey, Dr. Dan and Ross the Boss and Fantasy Sport Crew. Welcome, Pro Wrestling. It is good to see you. So we're looking at that OPS. This is going to tell you the value of a player in general. That's one measurement that I like to take. Another is the walk to strikeout ratio. Now, 5 to 15 is a small ratio, but if you look at his season before, it was 6 to 35. That shows that he's getting better. This season so far, it's 1 to 2. Very, very small numbers, so you cannot count on these. But these are signs of a potential breakout. Now, here's another thing that I like to do. I like to go Jared Walsh. I wish they just had this in the Yahoo rankings. They really should. There's something called BABIP. It is batting average on balls in play, and Fangraphs is a great site for this. See how much more I know about baseball than these other things. All right, we're going to go to Fangraphs, which is a site that tracks even minor league statistics. So you can know, and it also gets all of these things like BABIP. Okay, now, last year he had a 256 BABIP. That is very low compared to what he usually has. What this tells us is he was not getting lucky. He actually was getting slightly unlucky and still batted 293. Now, the year before, he had a 349 batting average balls in play. That means every time the ball went in play, not foul, what was the batting average? He wasn't actually getting in play that much because he batted 203. So you wouldn't think he's necessarily a breakout player unless you understood what was happening here. Now, look, his walk to strikeout ratio historically, pretty good. He strikes out a fair amount, but it got better and better in the minor leagues. So these are the things that you can see that track why a player would be better. So all those fantasy guys who said, oh, he's 27 years old and he hasn't made it yet, they were missing, I think, what was underneath. Now, I'm not just going to brag about my players. There's lots of great players out here to talk about. We've got a player like Nelson Cruz. Now, everybody knew he would be a good player, but because this is a keeper league, so he's a veteran, he also only qualifies as utility. So this is the kind of player that you can get at a discount. He's going to be great. You can only play him in the utility spot, but a savvy manager knows, scoop him up. You can probably get him beyond. So he's ranked 66th. In a draft, Nelson Cruz in a keeper league is always going to go 80 or higher. Nobody's going to waste a keeper pick on somebody that old and without the position flexibility. So, but Nelson Cruz is always going to be this good. This is no surprise. What might be a surprise is he's only gotten 8 at bats, but look at what he's done in those at bats. Here's another player that Lauren strikes with, Marcus Semien. He had one good year after many, many not good years. So far, he has 2 homers, 4 RBIs, and 2 steals. Classic Lauren. This is the kind of thing where we all complain about what we don't know. I'm like, I don't know what you're doing, but you're always doing things like that. Now, we've got Casey's best player, Byron Buxton. This is a guy, he's another player that maybe you should have targeted. He is a kind of post-type sleeper. He had all the pedigree in the world. Everybody thought he'd be number 1. He went number 1 in a lot of keeper drafts. And then he was just pretty terrible, actually, for 2 years. But you got to check and see, are they beginning to figure it out? Let's take a look at the stats and see what happened last year that suggests that maybe a breakout was coming. Okay. Now here we see, look at the OPS numbers in 2019 and 2020 and look at the difference between 2017 and 2018. When you're in the 700s, that's not a very useful player. You start to get in the 800s, it becomes very useful. If you start to get up to 1,750, you're a very useful player. But of course, that's just the start of his season. One of the problems with Byron Buxton is whether he can stay healthy. By the way, I wanted to say, if you're out there and you want to come on the show, it's www.callmfsn.com. You can join me by video or you can join me by audio. And please put your comments in the chat. I'm happy to answer you. Otherwise, I'm just going to talk about what I want to talk about. If you want to control this conversation, you got to get in on it. That includes you, Ross the Boss. I don't see you out there. Okay. So Byron Buxton, his batting average has been decent the last 2 years. I think this is the sign of a player who has started to figure it out. He had 10 homers. He had 14 steals in 2019. Then in 2020, he played obviously less games because they played less games in the season, but he also was injured for some of that. And even so, you can start to see some things happening. Now, I will say this walk to strikeout ratio last year is ugly. UGLY ugly. 2 walks to 36 strikeouts. So listen, I understand some people shying away from him, but before that, he had in 2017 38 walks, 150 strikeouts. Not good. In 2019, 19 walks and 68 strikeouts, starting to look more like it. Now, I don't know what's going to happen with him, but because he's got power and speed, he's the kind of player I would have wanted to take a chance on. Let's see where he was ranked, though. 118. So that's a ranking that I would like for a player like that. He has some risk in his profile, but because he's got so much upside, I think it was a great pick. You got a player like, now look, Nate Lowe is available. Do I want him? Maybe. It depends on first base. I have Jared Walsh already. So a lot of who you're going to pick up is based on need. Now, I do want to just stop for a second and just talk about where we're at in basketball for the people who are craving some basketball out there. We are in the playoffs. I am ready to talk about playoff basketball. It's obviously the biggest deal. Now, in playoff basketball, you're playing the matchups. I really should also recognize that Baylor won the national championship yesterday. So one of our producers, Courtney, lives in Texas. I don't know. How near are you to Baylor? I don't know. You'll have to mouth the words to me because I can't hear you. She's 3 hours, she says. Good charades, Courtney. Okay. So I don't know if you're a Baylor fan, Courtney, but to the Baylor fans out there, congratulations. This is the kind of thing that can totally change a program. Baylor won a national championship. We saw it even going to the Final Four can do it. Gonzaga really changed things getting to the Final Four all those years ago. I mean, before John Stockton went to Gonzaga, it was not on the map at all in terms of basketball. He put it on the map some. And then I can't even remember who the coach was before Mark Few. I should look that up. But there is the coach before Mark Few kind of put them on the map, getting some Final Four or Sweet 16 or Elite 8 performances. Mark Few, though, has had them be there all along. Now I'm going to announce that we have our chat room MVP, Sam Jacobowitz. He finally is here. He says, hurry. He did not say that. He said, hello, sorry, which I combined into hurry. I like to combine words. Hello, sorry, I haven't been showing up. And then there's some laughing, crying people. I've been busy. No worries, Sam. Good to see you. If you have questions, especially about baseball, I am ready to talk to you, my friend. And I know that you're a big-time baseball guy. I've been chatting with people in the comments, and especially about our rankings. Now, of course, we're past the draft, but it's always fun to go back to the draft rankings and look and see how we did. Now, Ross the Boss is bringing up an interesting question. And when I say interesting, I mean that as one of those like quote unquote interesting, because it actually means something else. Sure, it's interesting, but he says Tatis is out. Drop? Unless you're in a 2-team league, no, you do not drop Fernando Tatis. And of course, Ross the Boss is just setting me up for an interesting conversation. So I appreciate you, Ross, even though you know not to drop Fernando Tatis. Maybe you're talking about a different Tatis. All right, let's keep talking about some players. Kyle Tucker. Let's talk about Kyle Tucker. Kyle Tucker is, tell me your favorite rookie pitchers. All right, Ross the Boss. Let's do that. So, not yet. Wait, I'm getting mixed signals from the peanut gallery. Not yet. Wait, was that not yet wait on Kyle Tucker, or was that not yet wait on pitching? Well, I guess what? I guess since I don't know, I'm just going to start. I'll get in on pitching in a second. I'm going to look at Kyle Tucker really quickly. I have a vested interest in Kyle Tucker not doing well. This is the kind of thing that fantasy sports does. Oh, I see. Sam Jacobowitz is saying not yet wait on dropping Tatis. He says, I hope it won't be too bad and he could go without surgery, but I doubt it. Talking about his dad, Fernando Tatis Sr., you can't drop him either because you can't even own him. He's not available. Now, lots of people love Kyle Tucker. Absolutely. Now let's talk about why they love him. Well, let's take a look at this 2020 snapshot of him. 58 games, he walked 18 times and 46 strikeouts. He stole 8 bases. He had 9 home runs. People love 5 category players. Now, when we're talking about 5 category players, we are always talking about hitters. There's no pitcher that is a 5 category player because they aren't getting saves and starting games. That it just doesn't exist. And this is why people actually devalue starting pitching. They think, well, I want to get a guy who contributes in 5 categories instead of 4. But you got to do the math. These 5 category players on offense are contributing 1/9 of your season. 1/9 of your season in 5 categories. The starting pitchers, if they're an ace, they'll provide 1/6 of your innings. They're more significant, even though they're only in 4 categories. And actually, if you do the math, if you do 5 categories times 1/9, you're getting 5/9. If you do, see, Ross, the nerds are coming out. Yeah, bring the math. But if you do the pitching and you get 1/6 of a season with 4 categories, you're getting 4/6, which reduces to 2/3. And that's 67%, which is bigger than 55.5 repeating. That is why starting pitching is the most important category to get right. It's not necessarily the easiest either. So that's why drafting a big-time pitcher always matters. Back to Kyle Tucker, and then we're going to get to rookie pitchers was the question. And I'm probably going to start that conversation with someone known as Mackenzie Gore. He is somebody that I really want to talk about. We've got a comment about liking Max Scherzer this year. I like Max Scherzer virtually every year since he broke out, but he was one of those post-type guys. He didn't do that much. Also, small fact about Max Scherzer, he has 2 different colored eyes. One's green, one's brown. He's one of those guys where you look at him and you're like, you're from the Fifth Element. I don't understand who you are. I just dated myself. I'm sure, Sam, you may not know what the Fifth Element is. They're going to do some remake of it probably. And I'll be like, no, don't do it. Like when they remade Total Recall. I didn't even see it. Kyle Tucker, let's see. Now he had that was just in the postseason. Regular season last year, he had an 837 OPS. Like I said, I like to see an OPS that goes above 800 before I really like a player all that much. If they're in the 700s, you can get them anywhere. These are not numbers that tell you everything, but they start to tell you things. Here's another thing. With young players, if they're hitting a lot of doubles, but not as many home runs, just wait. When their body fills out more and their bat speed goes up just a little bit, those doubles start to turn into home runs. So when you see doubles, that's something to look out for. We have a comment about liking not only Scherzer, but Bieber. Now, that is certainly not a stretch. Shane Bieber, not to be confused with Justin Bieber, put up some ridiculous numbers last year. Let's look at what he did. Now, Bieber, by the way, is one of my players. My top 2 pitchers this year on my team are Shane Bieber and Lucas Giolito. That's a nasty combination because they're both big-time strikeout pitchers. Historically, I have cobbled together pitching, but here I went for the aces. Shane Bieber in his first start, 6 innings pitched, 12 strikeouts. He just strikes out, and what you're going to see is these numbers, ERA of 4.50. And I mean, look, this is small numbers, so it doesn't really tell you. So we're going to look at last year. Last year. Why do they put it all the way down here? Yahoo, come on. Get with the program. I'm going to use my platform here to roast Yahoo when I feel like it. Shane Bieber was the number 1 player in the game in the formats that I play. And in the formats that I play in a 5x5 rotisserie league. Let's review that a little bit for people out there. Rotisserie leagues are different than head-to-head leagues. In a rotisserie league, you compete in whatever categories they are, and you are ranked against every team in the league. So, Russ DeVos says, picking up Bieber now in his half-team league. I mean, Bieber is a top 5 pick, I would say. At least top 10. Listen, last year, he pitched 77 innings, and he struck out 122 guys. He was almost close to striking out 2 batters an inning over 77 innings. He won 8 games. When I look at the win ratio, if a 20-game winner, it could win 20 games, let's say, in 200 innings. So you want to see a ratio of wins that's above 10. Okay? He's got a ratio of innings pitched to wins, and below 10. You want to have him winning a game more often than 10 innings. And that would be a great number. But wins are they're a little bit tricky. But they're not totally unpredictable. The way to predict wins is, do you have a pitcher who is not putting a lot of guys on base? That is walks and hits per innings pitch. That's called the whip. Okay, let me make sure you can see that. Can you see that in my screen? That's moved over enough. Yes. Okay. Wait, no, you can't. I don't think you can see that. And I don't know why. Well, anyways, his whip is 0.87. What this means is if you have a whip of 1, it means that you allow 1 hit or 1 walk per inning. That's it. 1 base runner per inning is the average. If you have that going, that is a good number. A 163 ERA, obviously good. But the way you predict wins is, do they go deep into games? They're going to go deep into games if they're not allowing a lot of walks, because their pitch count is going to be lower. You want a guy who goes into the 7th inning. That's going to get you a lot of wins. Now I'm going to get back to the rookie pitcher question. We also have a question coming in. Is David Price worth a bag of donuts? It depends on the donuts. But let's check on David Price. I mean, look, David Price, by the way, he's done me a lot of good over the years. So I owe David Price a bag of donuts, probably, I would say. What is he doing so far this year? Oh, look, by the way, Ross's name is Jobu, spelled correctly. I say wants a refill. So he's kind of drafting off my name. He's new to the league this year. So anything goes for that. You know, when you're the rookie, I don't do hazing. I do the opposite. I'm a very nurturing commissioner. You know, within reason. If you name your team Impeach Commish, then it changes a little bit. But he did change his name to Commish for Prez in the basketball league, and so I appreciate that, Ross. But he says Jobu wants a refill. I just want to tell you, the quote is actually Jobu needs a refill. Hey, bartender, Jobu needs a refill. Okay, so if you want to change the name, that's fine. I kind of like your twist on it. David Price, he did not have a good outing. Let's take a look at his numbers, though, recently and see, is he worth a bag of donuts? We're about to find out. All right, now, in the stats, there's nothing about bags of donuts. It's just not in there. But the last year that he pitched much at all was 2019. Not one of his best years. 4.28 ERA, 131 WHIP. Those are still fairly passable numbers, especially because he's still striking out a batter an inning. Won a decent amount of games. And the season before that, quite good. And quite good before that. And consistently good. I think David Price is worth more than a bag of donuts. I will give you 2 bags of donuts for David Price. I'm kidding. Actually, I think David Price is that was a smart pick by Ross later in the draft. Let's talk about rookie pitchers that was asked about before. Mackenzie Gore is one of the top prospects in the game, but he also pitches for the San Diego Padres. I love a strikeout pitcher that pitches in San Diego. That park is going to help people out. If Mackenzie Gore were a Colorado Rocky, he would be so far off my radar, I can't even tell you. The only pitchers I own on Colorado ever are closers. And closers are just volatile no matter where they are. But they're also a necessity. Closers always torture us. Let's call it what it is. You know, the closers, we draft them. We were like, I think I'm in good shape. Or maybe we're not. Maybe there was a big run on it. And now we got to chase after all these closers. And we're picking up guys that we've never even heard of before. That's closers for you. The torture begins right away. I have Trevor Rosenthal. He went down with an injury, and I had all these different choices. And I remember looking at it and thinking, which of these closers is the risky one? I can't tell. You know, the reason I was a little skittish on Trevor Rosenthal actually had nothing to do with him or his injury history. It had to do with the fact that the A's bullpen is very strong. I would probably have been better off picking a closer with nobody behind him. Now, I would have picked Ryan Presley if he had been available. But he was already gone. In fact, why don't we look at the draft? If we look at our league draft, a couple of things we can find there. We can find other rookie pitchers. And we can also find, where did these closers go? Take a look at what happened with the closers. Now, in my league, there are 6 rounds of keepers. So I kind of skipped past those. We can certainly talk about them if people are interested. But In round 7 is where you're going to start to see closers get taken because very few closers get kept. Closer value changes all the time. Josh Hader is one of the exceptions to that rule. Liam Hendriks was the only other closer to be kept in our league. Now, it can be different depending on what statistics are important in your league. But here we see in the first round. Now, I was shocked to see Julio Rodriguez go this early. In fact, when he was drafted, and it partly was because I've kept Mike Trout and Luis Robert, I didn't have any outfielders in that round really on my radar. When he was drafted, I was like, who is Julio Rodriguez? It's going to happen. You know, you got players that are just not on your radar. We got big time strikeout pitchers like Corbin Burns. We've got hot guys like Randy Arozarena, who had that great postseason run. I didn't personally believe in him, so that's not somebody I would pick. I picked Aroldis Chapman. And the reason is closers are very hard to find a reliable one. When I picked Aroldis Chapman, the minute I pressed the button, my assumption was that he would get injured. That's just what happens with closers. You're going to have bad luck with closers. You're going to have to fight through it. That's fantasy baseball for you. It's one of the torturous arenas of it. Football, though, is like everything's closers. It drives me crazy. Just, football. We'll get to that. I did get better this year. So now let's look. The next closer off the board, James Karinchak, is already in some trouble. This is a 7th round pick. This is the thing about picking closers early. Now, going into round 8, I had Ryan Presley queued up, and he got taken. Then I had Raisel Iglesias queued up. He got taken. I decided here that in my league, the closers were going fast, and I needed to make a decision about who to take. It was between Trevor Rosenthal, Kenley Jansen, whose velocity was down, so I wasn't too excited about him. Brad Hand, whose velocity also seems to be down. This is another way to think about pitchers and whether they are worth your time. Is their velocity down? They could have some problems. He also didn't pitch all that well last year. I'm just scrolling through to see who was taken next to see if I was considering them. This is a guy I really liked, Richard Rodriguez. Why did I like him? His stats are good, and the Pittsburgh bullpen is completely barren. There's almost nothing behind him. So I thought he was extremely undervalued, and I planned to pick another guy like him later. Jordan Romano would have been one of those. But actually, Jordan Romano, I believe, has since been injured. This is closers for you. Okay, let's get back to rookie pitchers. You're not going to see a lot of rookie pitchers picked early, but Tristan McKenzie was one that was pretty high on my list. The Indians pitching staff, they have had a knack, and this was not true growing up. We couldn't get a good pitcher to save our lives for like 30 years. Then we started cranking out all of these great pitchers. Cliff Lee, CC Sabathia, I think it all started with Oral Hershiser and Dennis Martinez, these old wizards. We used to call Dennis Martinez Yoda because he could just control where things went. And he kind of looked like him a little bit. So now the Indians are one of those teams that I really trust with pitchers. The Atlanta Braves, they were great back then, and they still are really good with pitching. So Ian Anderson, here we go. I had him queued up to take where I took Richard Rodriguez. And guess who took him? Ross the Boss. Ross, nice pick. You're doing well. Mixed in, there are guys like Keg Kimbrell. I almost said. Craig Kimbrell. We used to actually call, in the fantasy community, we would call a 3 strikeout inning a Kimbrell. That's how good this guy was. He struck out 3 guys in an inning all the time. It was called a Kimbrell. Well, now the bloom is off the rose, as they say in Shakespeare and other nerdy corners of the world. I love Shakespeare's, and I'm proud of any nerds out there. So say whatever you want. Now let's see. Other rookie pitchers we're talking about, I've mentioned a couple. I'm just scrolling through to see who else is there. I have someone on my team that I really like. I'm going to get to that in a second. Oh, I really liked picking up Shohei Ohtani late in the draft. I picked him up in round 16, and you got to draft Ohtani as a pitcher and as a batter. So that means you have to take him twice, which is a pain. But I'm telling you, if this guy were a two-way player, he'd be a top 10 pick. he's got that much upside and he can play both. So it kind of wouldn't be fair if he was a two-way player in fantasy. Just want to mention also, sometimes injured pitchers are useful to take. Noah Syndergaard, great pick. I took Carlos Carrasco in this round, Luis Severino. You see all these big-time pitchers. Actually, when did I take Chris Sale? I took Chris Sale in round 13. And one of the reasons I took him is that my cousin Andrew, Jim the Gent, was picking right after me, and I know for sure that guy was taking Chris Sale. I know him. Because Chris Sale in a keeper league could be one of the most dominant pitchers, if not the most dominant pitcher in the game, and I was not going to let him get that. This is one thing you have to think about in keeper leagues is what's the nature of the setup? Are these players going to kill you for a long time? I wasn't going to let Chris Sale be on Andrew's team. Nope. So we are going to wrap this up shortly. I'm going to finish this rookie pitcher conversation, and if there are any other questions, please ask them now. Other rookie questions. Other rookie questions. What do I mean by that? Other rookie pitchers. Well, there's Mackenzie Gore. He went in round 19. I'm just going to finish on one thing. I'm just going to say this. Why am I blanking on his name? Logan. He's on Seattle. Logan Gilbert. These big-time guys, they're going to get called up around June. The reason this happens is the arbitration clock. The teams don't want to call them up before then because it basically makes that year count towards the arbitration clock, and it sets teams back. So they usually wait until June, and then they get to bring them up for an extra 4 months on the clock. And Logan Gilbert and Mackenzie Gore, these are players like that. So listen, guys, it's been a pleasure talking to you all. We'll be back next week. I won't be back personally next week because I'm getting my second COVID vaccine shot. And so I will probably be lying face down on the bed, but hopefully not. I encourage all of you out there, challenge those belief systems. I'm a mind body guy. Maybe it'll be fine. I really do believe it's possible. So thank you for watching. If you haven't already, click subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, hit like if you like what you're hearing, and put your comments below. But we'll see you. It'll probably be Ross the Boss next week, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. Keep the questions coming. We love talking fantasy sports with you, cowboy. Oh, wait, that's his line. Ha! But you can't stop me from saying it. Thank you for watching, everybody.
Oh, yeah. From Kill Cliff, the #1 clean energy drink in the mind of Joe Rogan, comes the Flamin' Joe. Sugar-free, B vitamins, electrolytes, all them good drink things. An epic spicy pineapple fusion from out of this world, straight into your drink hole. Own it. Kill